right. Welcome. We are happy to see you today. We should have some other people joining us soon, but we're going to go ahead and get started. This is being recorded so they can, view it in full when they come later. All right. So I'm about to share my screen with you. We are at our halfway point. This is class session number 6. And yeah, we're just going to keep on going. Let me put the PowerPoint presentation and I'll just follow suit with that. Let me see. To figure out which screen is going to display on. Or to share. I think it's this one. All right, you guys. So this is growth through budgeting. Again, we are at class number 6. So we're just going to go over our one win, our one challenge, and a word of encouragement. So for those who are attending live today, if you would, just go ahead and share your one win, one challenge, and a word of encouragement.
I feel like this hasn't changed much for me. I mean, the win is getting the numbers in. The challenge was once again making the time. And the word of encouragement is I don't know if it's knowledge or knowing, but it makes the world a difference. I saw that today. I was completely off in my way of thinking. When I saw the numbers, I was like, I couldn't believe it. So knowledge is good. Knowing is good.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. Thank you for sharing. All right. Any other one wins, challenges, words of encouragement? For me, the win is we are at the halfway point. We are halfway here. You guys have had a chance to look at your bookkeeping, analyze it, make sense of it, as well as budgeting, taking a look at what that even means for you in the different categories that you may not have thought about. And word of encouragement is we're halfway there. Let's keep on moving. Remember why we're doing this in the first place. And let's finish strongly as we started. All right. So on today's agenda, we are going to review last week's homework, which really was the bookkeeping side of things. We took a few weeks intentionally to make sure that we had the bookkeeping right on your templates, and then we used the bookkeeping data and transferred that to your budget template. So we're going to review your budget creation process as well, answer any questions you may have, and then we're going to start today's lesson, which is analyzing and tweaking those numbers. And if we have time, we will take a look at that second tab on your budget spreadsheet, where we speak about creating the budget and comparing it to your actual spending. We touched on it last week for about 5 minutes, but we'll go into more depth if we have the time. All right, again, you're at the halfway point. You got this. So let's start with reviewing your bookkeeping templates. If you could go ahead and pull those up on your Google Drive and take a look at those and just let me know how it's going for you. We have 2 different ones. We have the business bookkeeping template as well as the personal. How are those looking for you?
Bookkeeping, not the budgeting, right?
Correct, the bookkeeping.
Oh, okay. Well, the personals are still, I'm not gonna lie, I'm working on that. But the business one, which is finally completed.
Good.
Yeah, that's what was eye-opening, really. Because me and my husband were thinking, no, well, we see all that money in our bank account, and we're like, okay, and it never really goes below a certain point. But
Mhm.
then once I finally looked at all the combined expenses, I was like, and then how much money was actually deposited? We are way off of what we were thinking.
I'm glad it was eye-opening for you. So for those expenses that you have with your business, I want you and everyone to consider if these are necessary expenses or if you could possibly categorize them as optional. We'll see where those items fall if you need every one of them in order to conduct your business, or on the personal side, if you find that you have many necessary expenses. We just want to make sure we put them in the various buckets so we'll know the expenses that we'll be able to tweak when that time comes, or the ones that are untouchable. And these are set expenses that you can anticipate going forward. So if you could categorize those as what you need versus what we may be able to do without. Also, planned expenses versus unplanned expenses. Common one would be vacations, or if your children are hoping to attend an event, or unplanned, we have those expenses. And also get comfortable with using estimates. So what we're doing with the budget is creating an estimate over the past 6 months to have a number to use. But what if there's a new expense that you hadn't had in the last 6 months that we want to account for? So we can use those items or insert those items into your budget using an estimate. Let me let someone in. Hold on. All right. So the bookkeeping template, we have those. Remember your necessary versus optional, plan versus unplanned, and get comfortable with using estimates on any items that you don't have a cost for at the moment. So the next thing is reviewing your budget template. So how is that process going for everyone? I hope the silence means it's going fabulously. So the goal that we were aiming to accomplish in prior weeks was to make sure that these numbers make sense, because we're using these same numbers to actually plan going forward for the remainder of the year. Okay, so just make sure all those things make sense to you. So let's remember where we're even going. In the very beginning, I asked you 3 questions, and I want to revisit those just to make sure we stay on track and stay focused and remember why we're even doing all of this. The first question was, what do you hope to gain from this course? Do you remember what you said to that question when you were asked? What do you hope to gain? Remember what you said. Many people was financial clarity, or being able to get out of the red and into the black. You have some major changes in life upcoming, and you want to make sure it's something that you can indeed experience as part of your lifestyle. What is it that you're hoping to gain from this course? That's going to come into play as we're budgeting for these different expenses and making sure we have room to make those things happen. Which leads me to question number 2. What are some immediate financial goals that you have for your business? Some people want to keep a certain cushion in their bank account, so they always have that $5,000 available regardless. So how do you make that happen? Or what are some, let me go to the third question. What are some immediate personal financial goals that you have for yourself? So remember those, remember all these questions. This is why we're doing this. These are goals that we're hoping to achieve within the next 3 or 4 weeks, which is totally possible and totally doable. Let's just make sure we're keeping this in mind as we're progressing through this course, because we're here for a reason. We're not just here to say hey to Sandra every Tuesday. That's not what we're doing. We're here to actually put our budget in place and make it something that's realistic and usable for us as financial tools as we move forward and accomplish our goals. All right. So let's remember where we're even going. Now, let's get to today's lesson. Today, we are analyzing and tweaking your budget. So, again, we already went over the homework from last week. At this point, we're expecting that you have not only your bookkeeping completed, but also you've taken those totals from bookkeeping and you've translated that data over to your budget. Now, when you're looking at your budget in the Google Drive, and I suggest you go ahead and open up that budget template. When you're looking at your budget, it's combined. You have your income from all sources, then you have your business expenses, and then you have your personal expenses. So let's take a look at the budget. And I want to make sure that as you open this and you look at it, that there's some key things that you consider as we're making sure that this budget is going to make sense for you going forward. Let me open up one as well. Sorry, I'm not sharing my screen on that end, but I'm opening it up. All right, so maybe I should switch from sharing PowerPoint. I don't know. You guys, do you have your budget open?
Yeah.
Perfect. So on this budget template, we're going to go and look at the totals. We've already put in the monthly data, and now we have totals. So if you look at what may be line 11 on your spreadsheet, you're going to see total income from business. So column E, line 11, you're going to see your total income. And it should be the same all the way across. Again, this is what you're budgeting based on what your income has been over the past 6 months. Does that make sense to everyone?
Mhm.
Good. Now, as you go down, you see the various expenses. We're not going to visit every one of them individually. What we're looking for is the total. We want to see where we are. So look at your total business expenses and then see what's remaining for you in your net income from your business. And just take a look at those numbers and answer, are you in the red? Meaning, do your expenses at this level, we haven't even got to personal, do your business expenses exceed your business income, or are you in the black? Once you determine if your business is in the red or in the black, then I'll let you know if there's anywhere that you need to cut expenses on the business side, or if you should be considering different streams of revenue to add in the upper end. If you are in the black, that means you have funds left over that you can use personally. You can either leave those funds in the business or you can withdraw them and use them on your personal side. So as business owners and entrepreneurs, which is my audience, many cases, this is what you do, and this is where your source of income comes from. So you expect to have money remaining to use on the personal side. So we're going to continue going down. And so the assumption I'm making here is your business income came in, your business expenses came out, and you're left with numbers that are in the black. You're not upside down. So considering that remaining income from your business, net income at this point, look at your personal expenses. Where do you lie? So when you go down on this spreadsheet to personal, you may be around line 87, if not lower. But again, we're looking at the total. So we're all the income that comes in, all the business expenses that we must pay, and then all the personal lifestyle expenses that you have. Where do you lie? So we want to be in the black, but if we're in the red, this is the opportunity for us to reconsider some of our expenses, especially if we have some items here that aren't even able to be reflected because we don't have the funds to fund them. I hope that makes sense.
I have a quick question. I know you had mentioned this before, but with credit card bills, for example, and other bills or loans, you said you want to be putting the minimum as in.
What side are you doing? Are you counting it as an expense?
Yes, personal expense, the credit cards, for example. Well, yeah, the mortgage payment, same. Well, the mortgage payment's always going to be, I always pay the minimum. But with the credit card bills as well, I mean, because I at times I like to, if I can, for example, have a set amount per month and then just distribute it among the credit cards instead of just always paying the minimum.
Okay, so if we're doing credit card payments, like you're going to pay the bill, then that would be a cash flow thing. So it's two parts to answer that question. When you're on the bookkeeping template and you're booking the various expenses that you've paid for via credit card, the only thing we're focused on for that template, for the bookkeeping template, is going to be any transactions that you made on that credit card. Because on the bookkeeping side, what we're trying to do is capture your spending habits. We want to know, regardless of how you pay for it, whether it's on a credit card, bank, cash, forget the method of payment. We want to know your spending habits. So that's what we're trying to obtain on that end. So when you're putting that credit card on that tab for your bookkeeping, only grab the transactions, the activity for that month. If you didn't have any activity, there's no transactions to grab, okay. Now, on the other side, if you're thinking about, oh, I need to budget for making my credit card payment every month, and I know I'm going to pay the minimum amount, that would be totally different. And that actually is one of the items that's not reflected, like I was mentioning earlier, that may not already be reflected on your budget, because the only thing we're budgeting for are the expenses, like the spending habits that you have if you're using your card to purchase something. So when we're doing your budget, or anyone else who has credit card bills that they pay every month, we want to make sure on the personal side of this personal that you have that line for that steady credit card payment that you're going to make. And then we can adjust whether you pay more or less. Does that answer your question?
I think so. I have to think about it. But yeah, because I see it here on our personal budget, credit card bill, separately. So
Yeah,
payment I make every month, payments.
sounds good. I'm sorry.
Oh no, that's good. It's good. Yeah.
So the credit card bill, that payment, you would see that coming out of wherever you're paying for your credit card bill through. If I'm assuming a bank account. So on that bank account, you would have the transaction showing how much you paid on that credit card. So we would be adding this number in. So go to your bookkeeping template, choose that bank account that you use to typically make your credit card payments, and it'll show you how much you typically spend. And so you would put that number in the total, and then it would split it out to let you know on average this is how much you spend on paying your credit card bill.
Okay, yeah, I got it. Sorry, I got confused for a bit, but yes, I definitely have it. Thank you.
You're welcome. I was all over the place. I'm glad we got to where you needed to be. Any other questions? Okay. So the visual that we have today is a PowerPoint. I did not show you the spreadsheet, but I guess I could if I need to. Let me just scoot this over. Are you able to see it? All right, good. So she was asking about, I am on the budget template. I just got a blank one. Make it a little bigger. I hope operating with multiple screens, it always tries to give me trouble. But either way, you guys can see the credit card bill is here, 1, 2, and 3. And so if you go over here after you've completed your bookkeeping template and you receive that total, then you would come over here and say, oh, we spent $1,300 on credit card payments. So that would average out to $260 a month in this instance. And so that's the number that we would use when we go to the next tab. Where's that next tab? Budget versus actual tab. And then for a credit card, of course, we would put in, I don't even know how far down I need to go. Credit card here. We would budget for the 300 or 260. And then you would look at your statement and see, oh, well, I actually paid 300 that month, or whatever the case may be. Okay? But it all starts with the bookkeeping. And the credit card payment is separate from your spending on that card. All right. So when you're looking at your budget, again, when you get to the bottom, after you've considered all your income and expenses, we want to make sure that you're in the black. If you're in the red, you have to see how to get out of the red and get into the black. What expenses do you need to cut? Or what additional income can you generate? All right. So what goals need to be added in and budgeted for that aren't already here? Just because you have spending habits for the past 6 months doesn't mean that new spending habits aren't going to join the mix. New interests aren't going to come in. So those are the things that we want to make sure are added to your budget and accounted for. What are you trying to do differently, or an additional expense that you want to add that we need to consider as we're doing this budget? This budget is not just a toy. It's realistic for you. What is it that you're wanting to accomplish? Let's go back to those 3 questions. What is it that you want to accomplish personally? And what do you want to accomplish in your business? And we're going to add those items in and see how we can keep your numbers in the black and make this happen. That's going to require some real life adjustments. Maybe you should decrease your entertainment expense. Maybe you should decrease your clothing expense. Something that's considered optional that you may be able to not have so that you can enjoy another thing that you would prefer to have. All right. So what goals need to be added in and budgeted for? And does your trajectory, where you're headed, does it need to be adjusted any further? Now that you're into the numbers and you're seeing how your spending habits are, where do you want to go from here? What is it that you're trying to achieve as this first milestone? And what are some other steps that we must take to ensure these numbers are ready to be used for your budgetary goals? So again, today we're all about analyzing and tweaking your budget. Does anyone have any questions on where to even get started in this process?
Maybe not a question, sorry, just a quick comment. I mean, the first thing I saw as I was doing this and looking at this budget, the first thing I'm gonna do is call my insurance agent, at least for the business part. I know that there's some things I recently added to work with a company, which I'm not even working with, but I'm still paying all that extra insurance. So that's one.
That's great. How much is that going to save you on a monthly basis going forward?
I don't know exactly, at least maybe around $200. I don't know. It could be more. It could be more.
That's huge. That's huge. So at least you have the additional funding you can work with and put it wherever you would like to put it. That's great. Any other input? All right, you guys, we're into the analyzing and tweaking it. Let's make this thing work for us.
Yeah, I went through and
added 2 columns, the percent of total expense and the percent of total income.
Ooh.
So, and then I colored the, I did some conditional formatting to see it more clearly where the red, like where the highest areas of cost are. It just made it a little more visual for me. Because I've got to cut a lot out of mine, and I'm trying to figure out like where to cut. But the percentage of total income column was really helpful to see. Oh, that's like there's a credit card that I use for business purchases and personal purchases, and it represents like 18% of my income on a monthly basis. But it's like it's flowing in and out, right? I'm paying it off. And I'm making purchases, pretty frequently. So it looks like it's really high, but the reality is if I just stop using that card, maybe that would reduce my cost by 18%. But I don't know. The point was the percentage columns were helpful for me to analyze the expenses.
Sounds good. I'm going to take a look at that and see. Sounds good. Thanks for sharing. So when you went in and you were analyzing your income and your expenses, I'm assuming you had something that was in the red, and so maybe you had to make some adjustments. Do you want to tell us about that experience?
Me?
Yes, Jason. Thank you.
Let's see. Well, we have a bit of a unique story from the past year. We had some savings allocated for a number of things, and so we pretty intentionally did a lot of spending this past year. Was kind of a investment for us. We invested into 2 small businesses, and then we had some, call it infrastructural overhead that we needed to pay for. So we weren't going backwards necessarily. We were just spending out of that savings bucket that is now pretty much gone, right? And so the challenge I have now is like, all right, that money's not there anymore. So to ensure that we're not going backwards, what is it that we cut moving forward? And in some cases, it's pretty easy because now there's a business that was invested into in the past. Now there's a business that has revenue. And so I just need to move it out of my personal, stuff and move it into its own business process and budget. And that would, it would look different, very different once I organize it that way.
Okay.
Which is part of my goal is like just trying to free up cash flow and then organize each business and bank account accordingly.
Sounds really, really good. And then it'd be really clear what are profitable ventures or
Yes.
investments. Typically, that's 7 years before you hit profitability. So if you're already there, oh my gosh, that's
I
great.
wouldn't say we're already there, but it just looks really bad on the personal side. But once we start to pull it out of the personal and into its own individual business account, then we can see it more clearly. So yeah, that's been insightful, really helpful. Yeah, I still got a lot of cleanup to do, but it's getting closer.
Sounds really good. I like the progress. All right. So as we continue to analyze and tweak and adjust the budget templates, that's going to be paramount. All right. So you guys just see what you can do to make sure that all your numbers are in the black and what would need to happen scenario wise so that you can make sure that's a reality for you going forward. And then we will be ready to move to that second tab on the budget template where we're comparing budget versus actual. Okay, so continue seeing where you can make those changes to get your numbers in the black. We will be referring to our June and July financial documents on the next session, August 1st, so that we can make sure we have what we need. Oh, my light went out. Okay, so August the 1st, we will be actually entering these items. So make sure that you have your June or your July financials if possible. That's August the 1st. Probably won't have July. so that you can take a look at the actual. Jason had to go. He sent us a message, but all right. So any questions, anyone? All right. If you have any questions, I'm sorry.
Oh, that was me. Sorry. Quick question, and I might be a little bit off. But with back to the chart of accounts, I still, as I was doing it, you in the comment section, we wanted to add the vendors that we use for each of those categories.
Yes,
Is that correct?
absolutely.
Actually, that was a lot quicker than I thought. So, okay, that was just it. I just want to make sure because I also saw some notes, that said restaurants, they were all going to be categorized as restaurants. So the name, the names didn't matter.
Of the restaurants, those
Right.
don't, and I think it's convenience stores because otherwise you'd be filling that whole column up. But some of the vendors, it would be beneficial for you to actually use their vending, their established name.
Okay. All right. Well, then I think for now, that's it.
Perfect. And that's a resource for you or for anyone else in your household that you're going to share the budget with, so they'll know where to classify a certain transaction should they see that vendor name. All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question that might be personal. So it's about one of my formulas for my sheets.
Okay. If you would like, we can take care of that after class if that's what you
Yeah.
need.
That's fine, yeah.
Perfect. So I think I need to go back. Are we good with the homework? We know what we're doing. We know what the goal is.
Right. So let me just clarify. We are tweaking our budget. We are adding in the June and July. And no, we only need to make the changes here, right? On this tab. We don't, because on the other tab, yeah, it was for the past months. Right.
The budget planning, that's the tab that we want to make sure reflects positive numbers. If you see that your expenses exceed your income on this template, we have to make changes. All right.
Okay.
Do you ladies have any numbers that are negative currently? Too many expenses?
I do, but because let me go look at it real quick. Hold on. Because I don't know this add back your own salary line. I don't know what I'm supposed to put there. I have something added there for January. I'm not sure if you added that number there because I don't know where that number came from.
Okay.
And then the other months have nothing there for add back your own.
All right, she broke up a little bit. Are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, can you say it again?
Yeah, I was saying everything except for January is negative because there's nothing in the add back your own salary to like help raise that number to positive.
Okay, so let me take a look. All right. So the business income, the net income from business, I see that. Then the personal expenses. So the add back your own salary would come back from where you actually paid yourself from the business. So under the business, it's payroll expenses.
So I need to go to
It's for you. It's not for what you pay your staff. Is what you're paying yourself from your business, if that would be the case. I don't think you actually process payroll for yourself. So that's not going to be a business expense for you anyways. So you would not have a salary to add back in this instance. But for the business owners who do process payroll for themselves, and it's going to show in the business side as an expense, then you want to add that expense back because it's actually going to you.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So let's see for yours. So make sure you just zero out the add back your own salary. And we have to make sure that your income is sufficient to cover not only your personal expenses, but the business expenses as well. And if it's not, we have to make a change. So knowing your own individual situations, where do you think the changes need to be made? That's for either of you. If you look at your
As
different, yeah.
Yeah, as far as you're both, right? Business and personal,
Yes.
all over the place. I think one of the things that we're making changes to now is, well, I'm trying to, and I'm trying to get my husband on board too, making sure that like so what we did was from our business account, we used our business account when we didn't have money in our personal account.
Okay.
So a lot of the expenses that were on like my business debit card, they were personal expenses on actually both of those, any of my business accounts. It's just, when you didn't have a card, like I didn't have my personal card, I used that card. And so it was just, that's why it was all over the place. And then same for our personal, my husband thought, well, it was business money in our account that he deposited, so he used it to buy business stuff. And I'm just like, so it's just kind of like, so just trying to get personal, business to see, like you had mentioned when we had that meeting, how much do I need, for our living expenses? What amount do I need to, because I pay my husband, I don't pay myself. I pay my husband through the business. So I need to figure out how much is it that we're really spending? How much is it that we actually need to be spending? How much is it that we don't need to be spending? So that's how we're kind of getting on track, trying to separate so we know what the actual business expenses are. Because right now, because it's all over the place, it's hard to tell. So that's one thing that's really helping, and being able to put it in here, these numbers and this budget. It's going to make a difference, because even though I'm not in the red yet, I haven't gotten all the personal side. I did the business, but we're in the black. But still, after getting in those personal ones, and then putting it all in the budget, it's gonna help separate those two, because those were, was not helping my business. It's really not. When we think you have a lot of money, but you don't. So.
Understood. Thank you so much for sharing. That is a very typical situation that we come across. So I know a lot of people can relate with exactly what you said. So thank you for that. And you're making the steps to get it organized in that way so you can see data that's meaningful to you. And not only to you, but to anyone who's a business owner. You always want to know those things that you've mentioned as far as seeing what all comes in and goes out for this one entity, and then what we have personally. So it's great that you're making those moves to get that in order. All right. Once you get it there, then yes, we will analyze the numbers and see what changes you can make once you have it set that way. Let us know how we can help you.
I have a comment to make.
Of course. Yes, ma'am.
I also make frequent transfers from my business account to my personal account whenever I don't have enough funds in my personal account. So on my transactions, there's like small amounts, like $20 here, $30 here, transferring from business to personal. So once I finish this budget and tally up the total amount that I transfer to myself randomly, I'd like to use that number to adjust my payroll amount that I pay myself. That way at the beginning of the month, I can just go ahead and just know how much that I sent to myself, because apparently that's how much I need. So, and just send it all at once and just not have 20,000 different transactions of like $5, $35, just to be more organized.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Yes, agreed. Okay, we can make that happen. And you have that number, so you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Perfect. Any other feedback or anything you ladies would like to share? All right, so this next week, we have what Jasmine mentioned, just making sure our numbers are lining up and just looking at them really closely to see how you can make changes, what changes that need to be made that are right for your situation, And when we revisit next week, again, class next week is looking at these numbers again, but we are moving on to the next tab. We want to look at the budget that we've generated and said, okay, this is where we currently stand. And then let's move on and make sure we have incorporated all the new things that you want to save money for, or whatever the case may be, over the next 6 months. So that will be next week, putting those numbers in and comparing it to actual, probably going to be June data, because again, July data is probably not going to be available on August 1st. But I look forward to seeing you guys at that time. Any final questions or concerns?
Yes,
No, I
I'm
just have
sorry.
one thing.
Ma'am?
I was saying I have some personal questions after the recording stops.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
And
Jasmine?
I have just one last one. I'm sorry. Okay.
Oh, no problem. Go ahead.
I don't mean to make it long, but one thing I haven't done, and I guess this is what I want to talk to you afterwards, but I guess it probably would be a good time right now.
Okay.
For example, I have my home, which we recently bought this year. So I haven't counted, for example, I haven't included electricity, or because I have a small area of my home where I use as an office. And I know when it comes to like tax standards, do I have to worry about that here? Because that's the other thing. I mean, like I use the internet, for example, mainly personal, a portion is for the business. Electricity, I mean, a portion because it's just a small area of my home where I keep my office. Do I have to count that here, or is it just, like mainly just, personal, how I pay it? Because I know for tax reasons it's one thing, but for here, if I pay it from my own personal account, that's what we're counting, right?
Great question. Absolutely great question. I'm so glad you even mentioned it. So the quick answer is no. We're not going to ask you to break down your home office expenses and put it under the business versus, we're not doing that. The whole point of this exercise and this assignment is to monitor your cash flow, to make improvements to your cash flow, to direct your funds, tell them where to go, and control your spending. That's the goal. But like you're mentioning, there are other things we can do with these numbers once we have them. But yes, that would definitely be for tax preparation, or in other instances, if we needed to know the total business expenses, or if you're going for lending or financing. But for this, what we're doing with the budget, we're just trying to determine the total amount of cash that's coming in and where it's going, and determining if it's where we want it to go. And if not, we'll make a change and put it where it needs to go, and making sure that we're making forward steps to get to that end result now, so that we can have these new numbers to guide us through the end of the year. So your utilities and your mortgage, we're going to see that on the personal side, just that one time. You don't need to allocate it out. But for your tax return, yes, ma'am, we do want to know that those total amounts and square footage and all that, so we can maximize your deductions there. Absolutely.
All right, I'm good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? All right. Thank y'all for attending. I will see you next Tuesday. Bye, ladies. Sorry, I'll call you separate.